It was a sunny Sunday morning when I decided to go for a walk. The weather was perfect, warm but not hot, with a soft breeze that made the air feel light and fresh. The sky was clear and the sunlight covered the city in a golden glow. I didn't have any special plans, just a quiet day for myself. After breakfast, I took my bag, put on my headphones, and left the apartment. The streets were calm, only a few cars passing by, and the sound of birds came from the trees along the road. I walked slowly, enjoying the feeling of a free day. Soon, I reached the old flea market near the river. It opened every weekend, and people from all over the city came to sell or buy things. Books, clothes, furniture, postcards, and all kinds of forgotten treasures. The smell of old paper and wooden boxes filled the air. As I walked between the tables, I saw so many interesting things. Vinyl records, antique watches, postcards from the 1960s, and small statues covered in dust. Every object seemed to have a story behind it. The market was full of quiet noise. The soft sound of people talking, coins clinking, the wind moving paper covers. I loved this place because it was like a museum where you could touch everything. Then, on one of the tables near the corner, I noticed something that caught my eye, a small, black, analog camera. It looked old but strong, with a metal body and a leather cover. The lens had a small reflection of sunlight, and I felt something special the moment I saw it. I picked it up carefully. It was heavier than I expected, and when I turned the focus ring, it moved smoothly. I didn't know much about film cameras, but I could tell that this one had history. I looked through the small viewfinder, and the world on the other side looked softer, quieter. I smiled. It felt like holding a piece of time. For a few minutes, I just stood there, turning the camera in my hands, looking at the small details, the buttons, the logo, the scratches on the body that showed years of use. It was beautiful in a simple, classic way. The seller, an older woman with kind eyes, was arranging other items on the table. The camera seemed almost forgotten among the things, next to an old radio and a few dusty photo albums. I thought for a while I didn't really plan to buy anything that day, but sometimes you just feel when something belongs to you. The camera had that feeling. It wasn't expensive, and I knew I could learn to use it. I paid the woman, thanked her, and carefully placed the camera in my bag. I felt a quiet excitement, like a child getting a new toy. As I walked away from the market, the sun was higher now, and the air smelled of coffee from a nearby cafe. I couldn't wait to try the camera, but I needed film. There was an old photo salon in the city center that had been there for many years, a small, family-owned shop that sold everything for photography. I remember passing by it many times, so I decided to go there next. I walked toward the metro station, feeling happy and curious. The streets were brighter now, full of people walking, laughing, carrying flowers or bags. The city was alive, full of color and movement. I imagined what it would be like to take pictures with this camera. The sound of the shutter, the feeling of winding the film, the quiet waiting for the developed photos. It felt more real than just taking pictures on a phone. By the time I reached the metro, I already felt that the day was turning into something special. The photo salon was small, with a sign above the door that said Photo Studio. Since 1993, it looked a bit old-fashioned from the outside, but the windows were full of photographs, portraits, landscapes, and black and white city scenes. Inside, it smelled like paper, chemicals, and old wood. The walls were lined with frames and shelves of film boxes. Behind the counter stood an older man with gray hair and glasses. He was wearing a simple brown sweater and had a calm, friendly face. I placed my camera on the counter and smiled. The man looked at it for a second, then his expression changed to one of quiet recognition. He turned it in his hands, adjusting the lens, checking the viewfinder, and smiled with real warmth. The way he held it showed respect, almost affection. He said something softly, his voice calm and deep, about how this was one of the best models of its time, reliable and well-built. He looked like someone who had spent his whole life surrounded by cameras and photographs. He opened a small drawer and took out a box of film rolls. He carefully loaded one into my camera, moving with practiced hands, as if it was something he had done thousands of times. The way he closed the back of the camera and turned the lever made a small, satisfying click. Then he looked at me with a gentle smile, as if to say, "Now it's ready." I thanked him, feeling grateful not only for the help, but also for the quiet respect he showed for this old camera. It felt like a small connection between generations, between someone who'd used film cameras for years and someone discovering them for the first time. Outside, the sun was still shining brightly. I walked through the old streets of the city center, holding my camera in my hands. The buildings were full of color, soft yellows, warm reds, cool grays, and the air smelled of roasted coffee and fresh bread. Every corner seemed to ask for a photograph. I stopped near an old cafe where people sat outside, talking and laughing. I lifted the camera, looked through the viewfinder, and pressed the shutter. The click was soft but clear. It felt different, slower, more thoughtful. I walked further, past the square with street musicians, past the bookstore with its open doors. I took photos of reflections in shop windows, of bicycles leaning against walls, of pigeons on the pavement. Every picture felt like a small story, a frozen piece of life. The sound of the film winding after each shot became almost like music. I realized how much I had missed the feeling of being truly present in the moment, looking, observing, taking time before pressing the button. The sun began to lower, and the light turned golden again. I reached the bridge over the river and stopped there for a while. The water sparkled, and the city's reflections moved gently on its surface. I took my last photo of the day, the skyline glowing in the sunset. When I got home, I placed the camera on my desk. Its surface still felt warm from the sun. I sat by the window and looked outside. The evening lights were slowly turning on across the city. I thought about the day. It had started with no plan, just a simple walk, but it became something much more, a day full of small discoveries, kind people, and quiet joy. The camera, the market, the old man in the photo salon, they all felt like parts of one story, a story about slowing down, noticing details, and finding beauty in simple things. I made a cup of tea and looked at the camera again. It looked peaceful there on the desk, ready for the next roll of film, for the next walk through the city. And I smiled, knowing that tomorrow, or maybe next weekend, I would take it again and go capture more moments, not perfect, not planned, but real.